another edition of Uniquely Issaquah. Today, I'm meeting with 3 generations of the Rowley family, and we're going to talk a little bit about their connection to salmon and the Issaquah Hatchery. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first, I think I'd like to get you all to introduce yourself, and we will go oldest to youngest.
Oh, dear. Skip Rowley.
I'm Kelly Richardson.
And I'm Jake Miguel.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming today. Salmon and Issaquah is just an iconic image of what it's like to live here in this valley between these beautiful hills. Tell me how you got passionate about salmon and the hatchery in Issaquah. And let's start with Kelly.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so my connection to the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery began when I was just a child. My grandmother, Grandma Pat Rowley, would take me to the hatchery, and we would just look at these amazing creatures, right? And it's just like, wow. And so I grew up with a wonder about these salmon. And then probably in the early 90s, we had a gal who worked for our company, Rowley Properties, by the name of Amanda Heineman. And Amanda was one of my best friends, and she was a coworker, and she passed at an early age. But she really inspired us about sustainability. And she worked with the city of Issaquah and formed what was Reclaim, which was before Craigslist, etc. And it was a platform on a floppy disk where businesses would put their byproducts on that they no longer needed, and other people could go pick it up. So it avoided the landfill, etc. Wow. So that really inspired us all at the company. And that grew, and then in 2010, I became a volunteer fish docent at the hatchery, and I learned all about the salmon life cycle and its ecosystem, to the point where I was then able to give tours, teach, etc. And then I became, after a good deal of education, a master docent. So more education, and then they kind of let me go off and give presentations, etc. And eventually I became on the board, and it's been a passion because I've learned something every year with fish, and I'll let Jake continue on.
Yeah, well, that's perfect because my Aunt Kelly here, she actually did get me involved in the first place with the salmon hatchery. So I moved here a couple years ago, and, I'd had maybe a few months to settle in, and then she approached me and said, have you heard about the salmon hatchery? And she'd given me a tour a while back, and she was on the board there, and so she was interested in finding someone else to help serve there. And so that brought back some great memories, actually, because as a kid as well, that's when I first got involved in the hatchery. So we did a school tour as part of my 3rd grade class, I think, something like that. And I specifically remember this one moment where a fish jumped out of the pond right over the glass enclosure, and it was flopping around on the ground, and all the kids were yelling and stuff like that, and the guide grabbed it and threw it back in, and it was spraying eggs everywhere. And so I really got that firsthand education about the salmon here.
Wow.
And I could just see how interesting and cool they were as a species. So that's where I first got my love for it, and that's definitely what got me interested in serving here on the board.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you both for serving on the board. I think one of the real great things about Issaquah is the amount of volunteerism, but it takes a lot of work. So thank you both. And Kelly, I enjoyed serving on the board with you. You were a very inspirational board member. So Skip, what is your connection to the salmon hatchery?
Well, it was kind of coincidental as to how all this happened, but it was somewhere around 1993 or 94. Suzanne Suter, our executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, called me on the phone and said, "Gee, Skip, the fish hatchery is going to get shut down. The commission's going to vote to shut it down." And at the time, it didn't make any sense to me because of all of the things, even back in the early 90s, the number of fish that we were catching or available to us or in the sound or in the ocean was very limited, and it didn't make any sense that somebody would shut down the source of our fish. But the more I looked into it, the more I found out she was right. And I believe at the time there was a lot of discussion about the difference between a wild salmon
Yes.
and a
Yep.
salmon that was raised in the fish hatchery. And so this hatchery, part of our community for the last 50, 60 years at that time, was going to get shut down, and it upset it to a point where Suzanne got on the phone and called everybody she could think of, and I rented a bus, and we all climbed on the bus, and down to the South Seattle Community College we went, where the Fisheries Board was meeting, Fisheries Commission. And it was quite a crew. I'm pretty sure that Rowan Hines was there. I don't remember whether Rowan was mayor or whether Ava was mayor, but they were both on that bus at the same time. It was a political season, and we had Kathleen Drew, who was our state senator, and her husband Steve with us. And since it was political time, Dino Rossi was running against Kathleen, and so Dino's wife Terry was on that bus, along with 30 to 40 of the rest of us. And we went to the meeting, and not all of us spoke, obviously, because we were all going to say the same thing, but we were able to convince the commission that not only was that hatchery important and an emblem of the city of Issaquah, that it was important to the entire community from an educational standpoint, and that we would form an organization and work with the fisheries department, not only to publicize the fish situation, but to assist them in the operation if they needed it, and the educational aspects of going to schools and teaching kids about the life cycle of the salmon. So I got involved only because I had an account with a bus company. And I was able to pick up the phone and easily call for a bus that would hold 50 people. And the bus arrived, we all got in, and away we went. The two people that I remember that had the most to do with the establishment was Suzanne Souther and Steve Bell.
Yes.
Steve, I think, I can't remember whether he was still on the city council or not, but he took over the executive director aspect of the organization and was the executive director for quite a few years and did a fantastic job. And that's what helped put fish to where it is today.
Wow. Well, Skip, let me dig into that story a little bit. I'm sure that, the only obstacle wasn't getting a bus. What else did you have to push back against or put effort in to make that? I moved here in 93. I believe this happened in 94. And it was a monumental lift to keep a hatchery open when it had been listed like that.
Well, luckily the word lifted was not exactly correct. It was in the process of being lifted. And we were able to politically have the Fisheries Commission understand that there was more to this than just their role, and that the entire region, and especially our city, would be adversely affected, let alone the whole state of Washington. But our region was something that was willing to step up and to help them, and which, of course, the hatchery or the fish organization did. That includes everything from painting buildings to putting in flower pots to working with the state of Washington to get additional grants to build additional facilities on the site. All of that thing, and it was really important. Mark Mullet did an excellent job in helping get grants from the state so that we could improve the hatchery. And I can also remember at the time, the manager of the hatchery was not someone that lent himself toward the city and the public good, and he finally left. And we were able to do a lot more to help the hatchery than what we had been able to do in the past.
Very, very unique model to bring volunteers to the table to help out with all of those aspects of running the hatchery, but also managing the people coming on to tour the hatchery.
Yes. And of course, that's where the docent program comes in, as you all know. And now we are getting people by the thousands over a year that can actually see the fish in the creek, see the obtaining of the eggs and the sperm and see the fish in the viewing stations, and then touring the hatchery itself and seeing the fish eggs in the whatever containers they're called, and see the whole thing and see how important it really is as to how that fish in the grocery store got there.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I've toured a couple of other hatcheries, but none is set up like the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery. Just very grateful for that team that you all pulled together. I mean, that is the kind of broad coalition that actually can get through a difficult situation. You really had a strong team.
Well, we did, but it took everybody.
It
took
did.
the business community, it took the political community, and the average person at home got all excited about it and showed up on the bus. And that's what it does take. It takes not only the government aspect, but the citizens to get behind a project to make it successful.
It was amazing. And 30 years later, here we are.
Yes.
It is thriving. It is a tourist attraction of national interest. So really appreciative to everybody who put all that time back in the 90s. So Kelly, talk to us about your experience as a board member. What was the focus of FISH when you were serving? I know, not only being a board member, you were also our board chair. And so we have evolved over the years. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. When I first got on the board, I was actually the chairperson of the Public Relations Committee for FISH, Friends of the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery. And we were focused on bringing more awareness to fish because there's actually people in the community who haven't experienced what's happening at the salmon hatchery, and it is amazing. And so I just want to clarify, there is a difference between FISH, Friends of the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery, and the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery. FISH is that nonprofit with the volunteers that helps Department of Fish and Wildlife raise the salmon as well. We give tours, go into schools, etc. So I was as the chair of the Public Relations Committee and trying to bring more awareness, in addition working with elected officials to bring more awareness, because environmental education, there's a lack of it, right? Where can you go to experience this kind of education? And usually you'd have to drive hours and hours to experience something like that is here in Issaquah, and it is an Issaquah treasure. So I helped advocate for a number of things with the hatchery, and one of them happened to be the upper intake weir, which Skip also helped, and the city helped, and that was a big deal to replace that, because what that did is it opened up additional habitat for our salmon. But when I was on the board in the beginning, we had a part-time executive director. Right. And that had served fish well, but with the demand for environmental education, there was just so much more that was needed from fish. And the board made a decision to hire a full-time executive director. With that comes additional responsibilities, including more funding. And so I helped move the board into a working board that then participated in fundraising, helped advocate for fundraising, as well as added additional members onto the board to help round out the skill set of the board. So attorneys, CPAs, all the things that is really going to help fish move in the direction where it needs to move.
That was
exactly.
Great.
Exactly. Yeah. So, there was amazing, wonderful things, but I'm also a believer in term limits. And I was really, really happy to be able to pass the baton to someone so capable as well, to the folks who are on the board now.
Yeah, I really appreciated that effort you made to broaden out sort of the board skill set, I'll call it, because we have so many people who want to volunteer, but an organization needs to have all of those, somebody who understands the financing world, the nonprofit world, the legal world, public relations. So it was really fun to serve with you, I think, for 10 years and watch you build that board out. It's fantastic. I do also appreciate that you believe in legacy, because I do think that finding new people to step in, I agree with you, as I appreciated all of your effort. But I was thrilled that you brought your nephew in, So Jake is now on the board, and fish is still evolving. There are new things happening over the last 5 years, and I'm not sure our community knows all about it. So Jake, what's your time on the board been like, and what are you working on right now as a board member?
Yeah, totally. So it's been really fun being a part of the board. It's a great group of people who are really passionate about our mission here. So really fun working with everyone. Myself personally, I have had a lot of fun bringing kind of my younger and more tech-oriented perspective to the board. So something I did is we have a building called the Watershed Science Center, and we rent this out to businesses, other cities, stuff like that, and they use the space for meetings and things. So I was able to add a video conferencing system in there that's actually mobile, so you can move it around the room to accommodate your needs. It's also made our board meetings a lot more efficient when there's someone remote, because it kind of feels like they're right there when they're on the big TV. But I think kind of the most fun thing I've done on the board has been organizing the Rubber Duck Derby race at our Salmon on Sunset event. So this is just like it's a wacky, fun event where we take one of those long salmon ponds, we call them raceways, where the salmon grow up, and we race rubber ducks down them. So it's really great for the kids or adults who are competitive about weird things like myself. So we have a lot of fun with that.
So I think I'm a judge potentially for that. I've got some role and responsibility in that duck race this year. I'm not sure what it is, but tell us a bit about Salmon on Sunset. This event is relatively new. I've attended the inaugural one a couple years ago. What a fun event. So it's not part of Salmon Days. Tell me what Salmon on Sunset is.
Yeah, no, it's different from Salmon Days. Salmon on Sunset is all about the fish hatchery, all about the salmon. So we get people on there, and we have a lot of docents who are around to answer questions. The fish are actively there at the hatchery as well. Oh, they are very active there, for sure. So you see them trying to jump up the river. You'll see them in the fish ladders, in the glass tanks. Great time to view the fish. We also have a variety of different events to, encourage people to have fun there. So we'll let the kids paint little salmon hats. There's plenty of stations to view the salmon. And then we have like a fly fishing station as well. So you can learn how to actually catch the fish yourself. And then, of course, there's the Rubber Duck Derby.
Wow.
So plenty of fun events.
So for this year, how does the timing of that event work in conjunction with Salmon Days? When is Salmon on Sunset?
Salmon on Sunset, September 14th. So that's going to happen before Salmon Days on a Saturday, 10 to 6.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to ask either Jake or Kelly about is something that started when I was there was just a bigger role in advocacy. So when I first joined the board, a lot of it was about the operations of the educational program and finding funding. But then there's this third branch of actually getting the fish story out more broadly, because there's a lot of moving parts going on with legislation and environmental protection. So tell me a little bit about the advocacy work that Fish does.
Sure. So let's take a single female Chinook salmon or king salmon. She will produce about 5,000 eggs. Out of those eggs, only 1 or 2 will actually come home to spawn. They want to come home to where they were born because it was successful for them. What they have to go through to do that is unbelievable. The amount of challenges out there, whether it is warmer waters, more predators, man fishing, lack of forage food. There's so many challenges out there. And it's really actually what makes our salmon so iconic is the story of their resilience. It's really what we're celebrating when we're celebrating Salmon Days. And so, you look at the salmon, they are smaller than they were, 20 years ago, right? And at a certain point, we realized we need to help these fish. Let's take how many predators there are in Lake Sammamish that are invasive, and we can raise all the fish that we want, but we need them to actually get out to the ocean. And so there's been a lot of those kinds of conversations with elected officials to help to help the salmon do better. But one of the things that we're most proud of is getting that upper intake replaced, because what that did, that upper intake weir, or it was basically a place where salmon were supposed to get up the stream, but they did not. It was the best available science in the 1930s, which wasn't so great at looking back, right? But by replacing that weir, the salmon could then jump over it now, and that because now it's a series of natural weirs, and they have so much more habitat because of all of that. And so I think I'm excited to see in the future what that is as well.
Yeah, that was a fantastic habitat improvement, and also grateful that fish is so, the Friends of Issaquah Salmon Hatchery is so connected to the others that are working on the downstream habitat between the hatchery and Lake Sammamish. Many projects working on habitat, and we know how important that is to help increase the number of salmon that are able to come up and spawn. That is great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the advocacy work, and also being able to myself share your narrative, the Friends of Issaquah Salmon Hatchery narrative, at different tables that I get to sit at. You know, it's Northwest iconic. It's super important to Issaquah, but it's actually Northwest iconic. I think one of the really fun things about talking to the three of you is just seeing the multi-generational interest and passion around salmon. I know, we moved here from Canada in 1993. And in 94, we're kind of shocked to hear about the potential for the hatchery to close. But we had relatives, I think they came to visit the Northwest more to see the salmon than they did to see the family. That came every September, October, because that was to them one of the richest opportunities that this area had to offer in an urban setting like ours. So this really does appeal to all ages, from the school children that attend the programs to the adults and visitors that we get. I'm wondering if there's any other thoughts or reflections you'd like to share with the audience today about the hatchery and your work on it.
I just have one, Mary Lou. The development and outcome of the fish organization has given a platform to a lot of other people to be able to explain to everybody the situation with the fish. And I think as we get into more and more of the scientific aspects of what it takes to keep these salmon alive from starting to finish, the more details are involved, and that platform of the fish organization allows the word to get out. And the more that people understand what the situation really is, the better the opportunity we have to improve everything. I can remember as a kid growing up in 10, 11, 12 years old, fishing in Puget Sound with my parents in a small boat, and we'd catch salmon. And those fish disappeared after a while. And I wound up going to Alaska to be able to catch a salmon. So it's really important that that platform of the organization stay viable. One of the ways that can really help is for those that don't have the time to spend as a volunteer, is to send them a check.
Right. Always important.
Absolutely.
Kelly.
Well, what resonates with me, there are many things, but these fish, they are so resilient. They have been out they go to Alaska, the Chinook, and they'll be out there for about 4 years, and then they'll come back, and they'll come through into fresh water. And when they change from salt water to fresh water, their bodies change. Their digestive system shuts down. Their immune system shuts down. They actually form fungus, and their whole goal is to spawn. They have so much resilience, so much perseverance. They're actually a lesson for us all in today's society. And to be able to see them, because they'll actually come within 10 feet of where they were born, right? They know. And so when we look at the hardships of life, right, to take them and to use them as an example And that's what we do at Fish. And so I invite everybody to come check it out, get nose to nose, take a tour, become involved in Fish, volunteer. It's really, for us, it's been about a shared journey with the community to achieve something bigger, than ourselves.
That's
So.
beautiful, Kelly.
Yeah,
Jake,
and
Jake, you got to follow that.
Gosh. Yeah, I don't know how that's possible. But I can add some color on kind of what we're doing now to further this vision and to get
Fantastic.
more engaged with the community. So a big part of what we've been doing this last year is trying to better utilize the space in the off season, because obviously the hatchery is a magical place this time of year in the fall, but it's still around here in the spring and in the summer, and it's a great park and a cultural landmark here for the city. So we've set up some new events as part of that to try to get people back onto the hatchery and keep them engaged here throughout all the years. So we've got something called the Earth Day event. We have Solstice at the hatchery where you can come and celebrate that. We also do a smolt release where smolt are baby salmon, and so we celebrate sending them off on their journey into the creek. And so we're just really trying to get more people onto the hatchery with this kind of stuff. We're also focused on the accessibility goal here as well. So we've worked on our self-guided audio tours. A lot of people prefer that these days. And so converting that into multiple different languages. We have 5 languages that are the most commonly spoken languages at King County. And you can listen to a tour in any one of those languages. So it's
That's
pretty exciting. And yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff where we're just trying to engage people, bring them here, make them feel welcome regardless of their background or where they're from. They should come and learn about the salmon and why they're important.
That's great. I believe you have something called Salmon Season, too, which was something I think I learned from your aunt, which was expanding the opportunities even during salmon viewing season, just from salmon days to let's talk about. They come in August through early December.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's one of the things that makes Salmon on Sunset such a special event. It's where you can ask questions of docents. There's a little less people there, which is actually nice because it's a more personalized environment for our community to experience the salmon, to feed the rainbow trout, and to learn and to share in a community.
Wow. So many ways to support. Just come and do a visit, make a donation, be a volunteer, serve on the board. Just so many opportunities for our community and those around our community who want to work with the Friends of Issaquah Salmon Hatchery. Well, I want to thank all 3 of you for your decades of commitment to the Issaquah Salmon Hatchery. As the current mayor, I still work with our past mayors, and it has been a long time that this project, this excitement, this energy and passion has really still lights a fire in people. So I appreciate all that the Rowley family has done and continues to do. So thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
I hope you enjoyed this uniquely Issaquah episode and take a chance to go visit that hatchery. It is really amazing. Thanks all.